Uh, this past Sunday, man, the Memphis. That's funny. The Memphis Grizzlies and Orlando Magic made a mid-level, definitely not blockbuster trade, sending Desmond Bane to the Magic in exchange for Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Cole Anthony, four unprotected first round picks, and one first round pick swap. Who won this trade?
Well, first and foremost, I got to clarify you. It is a blockbuster trade because of the four first round picks that are unprotected. The player involved, the main player, Desmond Bane, not a superstar, all-star level type of caliber player, but it's a blockbuster because of those four unprotected first round picks. Now, here's the thing. From a fit perspective, love the move for Orlando because we saw them play against Boston, and for halves, if not three quarters, we saw Orlando be able to maintain pace. When they hit that fourth quarter, they just didn't have the horses. They didn't have the shooting. Orlando's one of the worst 3-point shooters in the NBA as a collective, and now they got one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. One of my gripes with Desmond Bane, I've always said, I don't feel he's like a one-on-one scorer. He's more of a recipient scorer. Not saying he can't take you off the dribble and get floaters, but that's just not his game. He's more of a catch and shoot guy. He has expanded his game since he's been in the league, which is the reason why he got the extension that he got. I think he's going to fit Orlando like a glove. They got obviously a young and up and coming point guard with Jalen Suggs, which I don't know if y'all knew, but that is Tyrese Halliburton's cousin.
Oh, that explains why he's
What the hell? But he's up and coming, Ken. And then they have two main horses with Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero. So I like the fit, but this is where Orlando messed up. If it took 4 first round picks to get him, it took 4 first round picks to get him. But you got to protect them joints, dog. Like they got to be top 3, top 5, top 8 protected because your future is not a guarantee. The Phoenix pick, it is what it is, right? Like you give them that. Even this year's pick from Orlando, obviously give that unprotected. It is what it is. But those other 2 picks that are in the future, they should have protected them just in case. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's the only thing that makes this trade a bad trade is that they're unprotected picks. Because again, Desmond Bane is going to move the needle, but he doesn't put you over the top to be one of the elite teams in the East. You're going to be in the middle of the East now. Instead of being in a play-in, you should be 6 or higher. You know what I'm saying? But it's the unprotection on the picks, Ken. Like that's scary to me. I don't think that's good business.
The unprotection on the pick. So you're saying that Orlando should have protected the pick so the Grizzlies couldn't take it if they got a top pick?
Exactly. So in the NBA, you could protect your picks, right? Like you could say top 3 protected. So let's just say for whatever reason, let's say next season, right? Franz Wagner and Paulo go down, and it's just Desmond Bane out there. You know you're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. You're going to have a top 3 pick.
Go to Memphis.
That pick goes to Memphis. But if you would have protected that pick, you keep that top 3 pick, and then you exchange another, you know what I'm saying, first round pick down the way or whatever like that. You know what I'm saying? So
from what we've seen in the playoffs and from the Magic, I do think that they needed Bane. Like that's a going to be a vital piece of their team. They didn't have anybody other than Paulo that they could get a bucket. And even though Bane's, I agree with you, FIFO, he's a recipient scorer. He's not going to create his own shot, but he is so efficient from what he does at the 3 points. Like that, I think that him and Paulo actually may be a better combination than Bane and Morant. So I do think the Magic came out very well in this trade. For the Grizzlies, it just all the talk that I've seen about it, and the same thing I thought was like, okay, what are they? This kind of puts them in no man's land. Like they get 4 first round picks, yeah, but does that mean you're rebuilding with Ja? You're gonna like put those picks around him? Is Jackson gonna resign? Are you gonna resign Ja? Like it's interesting that they want to break that team up that I think was number 4 in the West. I just don't seem like that they doing anything cohesive to continue to build towards oh, we think Ja Morant is our guy, and we got the ammunition to put a good team behind him and want to compete in the West. Like, I don't think this did anything towards that for the Grizzlies, which makes me question the move on their end.
Well, I will say this, right? Like when we're dealing in draft picks, especially as many as that they got, it's not, you don't get those draft picks all the time to draft those guys in those drafts. You get that ammunition to be able to go swing for another trade for somebody else that you may feel fits better or takes you over the top. Because at the end of the day, right, like we know that the West is ridiculously loaded. Wasn't it like only 4 or 5 games that separated like 1 through 8? Like it was really close. And if we're talking about on paper, right, like, because obviously we're in the summertime now, except for 2 teams, but on paper, they're not better. KCP is not Desmond Bane, and KCP's coming off of arguably his worst season of his career. You know what I'm saying? And he got paid. So part of this trade was unloading KCP, which I get, which, you know, you have to give up assets if you want to get rid of a bad contract. But again, the protection, and also Memphis doesn't have a coach, right? So a lot of the things that you're saying, Spike, I don't disagree with you. I 100% agree with you. I'm just interested to see, because this is not the only domino. And Shams and Wendy have been talking about this is going to be a crazy offseason. And obviously we, you know, it has started, you know what I'm saying? We're seeing, we know KD's going to move. We know there's certain other players that's going to be available. That being said, I wonder if the Grizzlies, because I think Ja is still a superstar guy. I think he could be the face of the league, if not the franchise, right? I feel that if you do resign Ja, you do resign Jaren Jackson, then you utilize KCP's contract plus these 4 first-round picks that you got, and you may swing for another person. Because at the end of the day, Memphis is one of those markets you're not going to get a free agent. So you're going to have to go trade for your guy if you don't draft your guy. And I don't think that Memphis's timeline is in drafting players right now. They're in more of a win now, compete now mode.
I think Bane was feeling himself and they had to get him up out of there. You know, he was acting like he was one of them guys, bro, you know, and like he was the best player on the team, you know, compared to Ja. So what happens to him now? Because we'll move into Orlando. We will see. Because I think he can. What do you think? Do you think he'll slide into the second best player or the third best player on that team? Because Wagner is nice.
He's a good 3.
Yeah, I think some games he could be a 2, Ken. Because when you shoot 41% from 3, that means that you get hot. You know, and those games that he's hot, he might be the first option in those games. You know what I'm saying? Because he's that hot. We'll see how they want to construct their offense now that they have a legit floor spacer. But he's definitely a third option. Routinely, I think he could be a second option. You know, just depends on Franz. I think Franz could be a second or third. And the thing is that I feel with Baines, we kind of know what he is. Franz is still finding himself, and Paolo still hasn't even scratched the surface of how good he can be. So all of that, you know, movement, I think if Baines just goes in there as a professional and be like, hey, look, I'm going to do what you guys brought me in here to do, which is get buckets, space the floor, you know what I'm saying, be a consummate professional, where he fits in the hierarchy won't matter.
I mean,
he'll find his way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Ja was always out, so he was used to being a guy. So now you got to slide back into third option, second option, depending on the night. You know, I think he'll be okay with doing that because it's Paolo's team, bro. It's like Banchero's the guy. I think this is a really good move for Orlando. Like, it makes a lot of sense. It looked like they were lacking a guy of this caliber, and not many people were going to go to Orlando to play. It doesn't seem like Banchero is a guy that people want to go play with just yet. And that is subject to change. But I really love the trade for them. I think with Memphis, I don't know, man. It's really weird what they are doing now. JJ has finally managed to stay healthy. He had injury concerns early on, but he's managed to stay healthy consistently, and he's turned into a really, really good guy. Because
Got robbed of a defensive player of the year this year.
Yeah, he was looking shaky early on in his career, but he's there now. And now, are they going to build around Ja now, or what's the deal?
Well, there was always building around Ja, Ken. That's the best player on the squad. There was always building around Ja. And part of Jaren Jackson's journey was figuring out, okay, well, what does my game look like next to Ja? Because he didn't come in being a 3-point shooter. He didn't come in being that type of guy. He didn't come in being, one of the best shot blockers in the league. He grew into that. Not saying that he didn't have the ability, but he grew into those things. Now, I will say this, Ken, does this not remind you of what Minnesota did last offseason when they got rid of Cat, which is arguably their second best player? Not saying Bane is. We know Jaren Jackson Jr. is definitely their second best player. But then, but one of those guys that you have to get involved, a guy that they paid big money to. And all season I was talking about that this is a retool for Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? And they went as far as the Western Conference Finals. Now, I'm not predicting that for the Memphis Grizzlies, but again, I think that, they have so much draft capital now that I don't see them draft. The only way they're going to use those draft picks to draft players, Ken, is if they trade Ja Morant.
And so that's the next part of this. Do you think it would be wise for them to move on from Ja, or continue to build around him?
I think you have to explore all options. I think everything's on the table right now. I think Ja has to be on the table. If you get the right offer, then you move on. If you don't like what you're getting, obviously, he's extension eligible. I think he still has 2 years left on his contract. But he's extension eligible this summer. So if you don't like what you're getting, re-sign him. Utilize those picks in KCP to move on to somebody else that may be available and just keep it moving. But I think that if you do get the right offer, then you move on from him. Depending on what you get back in the trade, you might have to trade Jaren Jackson as well.
So they still have some roster restructuring to do, but we got Ja, KCP will play 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got JJJ. Mm-hmm. They got their center and the rookie, and Cole Anthony, coming off the bench,
of course, back up,
and then whoever else is on that team that they got. So it seems like they'll need another guy to slot into maybe that starting lineup. Maybe that guy's already on the team.
No, that guy's not on the team. What is he? He's a European player. I'm not sure if he's like Pakistani or something like that, but he's a wing player. He's him and Bane got into it a couple of times on the sideline. I'm bad with names, but he was a rookie. I really like him. I think I've been talking about Memphis and the weakness in their roster has been that 3-4 guy. Well, not 4 now because they drafted Zach Edey, so it slides JJJ to the 4. But that 2-3 guy that has elite ability. He doesn't have to be like elite in terms of like KD or Giannis, but a Siakam and OG Anunoby. That's what they're missing. They need a guy like that. And they need a bucket getter. As much as Baines is a bucket, you just can't give him the ball and clear it out and be like, just go get a bucket. Like, that's just not his game. So whether that's somebody off the bench, somebody in the starting lineup, I think they need a bucket getter. I think they need and then they need somebody that can compete with the KDs, the Giannis's, the LeBrons of the world on defense.
What do you think of this trade, Q?
It's good for Orlando. At first, you're going to look at it with all the picks involved, but Orlando's going to be good for the next 3-4 years. So a lot of those picks are probably going to be really late. And they're first, I think they're the top 10 protected. Oh, wait, no, they're unprotected. But I believe that they're still going to be good enough to where that's going to fall to the back half of the draft. So you shouldn't be looking at that like, this huge haul for, what I'm saying? I see people were saying, oh, Luka got one thing. I don't think it's going to be that big of a haul. I think that Orlando's going to be good for the next 3-4 years. And if you're Orlando, I think the reason why they probably pulled the trigger on this is because you're watching Neesmith and you're watching Nemhard, you're watching, Cass and Wallace and Aaron Wiggins and all these people either come off the bench, start for these finals teams. And with the Celtics having basically going to punt the year, and Jaylen Brown having arthroscopic surgery on his knees, and people have been ringing the alarms about Jaylen Brown's knees also for the last season or two. Boston's not going to be in the picture. We're not sure how good Cleveland really is and who's really the top guy there. There's still things that have to be sorted out in that organization. You look at Milwaukee. Are they going to be stubborn and just keep Giannis because, hey, they think the same thing as Orlando, that the East is wide open? And if you're Orlando, are you scared of Milwaukee if all they got is Giannis and a bunch of guys? So if you're Orlando, you can talk yourself into the fact that, we can make the Eastern Conference Finals next year. Banchero is that good. And we keep running into Boston in the first round when they were fully loaded. Now that they're gone, who's really in our way? Are we scared of the Pacers for real? I don't think anyone is looking at the Pacers like a juggernaut. They're looking at them like, man, this is a really good team that doesn't quit. They know their roles and they're scrappy. Desmond Bane, he adds the shooting that they needed so badly. They still need a point guard to me. I still would have liked to have.
You don't like Jalen Suggs?
Suggs, to me, I think he can be a combo. I think that he's good enough to play with. I always say like Trae Young and Jalen Suggs would have been the perfect backcourt for them because you have distribution and shooting and you still have defense and some like secondary ball handling there. I don't think Jalen Suggs moves the needle enough from an offensive standpoint, but I think Orlando's betting on just running, Suggs, Franz, Banchero, Bane, and then probably putting Isaac and whoever else their five is, and then hoping that their rookie Anthony Black, shows some more promise because he had a pretty solid year last year. It wasn't as good as his rookie year, but no, man. Overall, I would give the trade like a B+, A-, and I think that if you're Orlando, you shouldn't be afraid of anybody because you have no idea. Like I said, Boston, Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York Knicks, who's going to lead that organization? Can they recapture lightning in a bottle? Really, your peers in the East are going to be probably Detroit. It's going to be, the guys with stars like New York, but nobody's a juggernaut. Nobody's Goliath. So this is a good trade. If I'm Memphis, though, to answer you all's question there, I'm blowing it up. I think that experiment is done. I think I've seen what Ja Morant is in this organization. I'm not saying as a player, but from what I've seen in this Memphis organization and them firing Taylor Jenkins, it's just there's no adults in the room. And when there's no adults in the room, I'm always going to go for the philosophy of get value now before it gets even worse. Jaren Jackson has a year left on his contract. I would move that immediately, and I would try my damnedest to get off Ja's contract because I don't think that there's anything you're going to win in the future, especially if OKC and the Lakers retooling around Luka. Once LeBron is off the books, they get mad cap space. That's going to be in the window. You have Denver that's still going to be lurking. They're going to be able to retool. They're going to move some contracts if they can. Jokic is not going anywhere unless he just wants to retire. He has another 4 or 5 years of being super fucking dominant. And if you're Memphis, like a foil to Orlando's philosophy, are you looking at yourself in the next 3-4 years and saying, we can make the Western Conference Finals with this team? Personally, me, I would say no, but I've been wrong before.
So a couple of things, Q. I agree with like 95% of the things you said. I don't agree with the unprotection of the picks because while I do agree that Orlando should be good for the next couple of years, we can't predict injuries. And I think an injury to Banchero puts you in a lottery, even with Bane on the roster. You know what I'm saying? So that's my only thing. And I don't think it needed to be like top 3 protect or like it didn't have to have like a large protection like lottery protected, just like top 3. Because if you do have an injury that you can't overcome, I think you should be compensated for that. So that's the only thing I disagree with you there. But in terms of like the fit, for Orlando, 100% agree. In terms of what it means for Memphis, I don't disagree. I will say this. I think there are places that if I was Ja, I would probably want to go to. You named them in terms of like an adversary. But they've been flailing a little bit in recent years. But like Denver, I would entertain a Jamal Murray for Ja Morant trade because Jamal is a shell of who he was. Josh still has a lot of runway in front of him. I think he's kind of sort of, I think we know what he is. I think what I would like to see out of Ja is more old man game because when you can't double pump baseline against Boston's 7-2 and, blockers and everybody at the rim, when you can't do that, what does your game look like? So, it's still magnificent right now, the athletic ability and the explosion. But what I would like to see out of Ja is what does your old man game look like? And I think you put that juxtaposed to Joker, that's a dynamic duo. Like,
it is dynamic, yeah. I told Ken I told Ken on Sunday, if I'm the league, I'm trying to facilitate Ja to Minnesota. If I'm the league, because I think that is just straight up prime time, the most athletic backcourt you've ever seen. You know what I mean? You have the Splash Brothers. Well, these are the Crash Brothers. They ready to crash out, and I feel like this would be the ratings you're looking for. You give Ant his point guard the pressure valve release that he needs. I think it would be prime time.
Let me ask you this though, Q. No, I love that, but do you feel that Ja moves the needle more than KD would for Minnesota?
Absolutely.
Long term,
of course. I'm not talking long term. I'm talking like the next
term, short term, midterm, next term, all term.
Next 2 years, you could make the case that KD fits a more like pertinent offensive need in clutch situations and probably as just a 3-level scorer that they just don't have right now. But I think that Ja makes Ant more dynamic immediately as well. And just the lob threats, like immediately, like it's just like, wow, how do we, like, you know what I'm saying? But Ja has to work on his 3-point shot. It's not that he has to be 43% on like, 8 or 9 attempts a game, but he has to take that leap from, like you said, the old man game back to the basket will be so nice to see, like just a little turnaround baby hook consistent 4 or 5 times a game. But then also I need him to be in that 39-40%, 38-40 percentage in his 3-point shot, because that's the thing that has regressed since I think the last 2 seasons. He was making strides, and he had like I think 3 months where he was shooting 40% on like 5 or 6 attempts, but it's gone down since then. And I think that's a testament to just no adults in the room, man. Like I'm not saying Ja Morant is being failed by the Grizzlies. I just think that the Grizzlies are not putting their best foot forward with developing their young talent for some reason.
Now, F that Q. What you said first is what's right. When you have a dynamic player like Ja, you have to get the coach that is going to build it around Ja and what his talents are. And I think once they moved off of
Taylor Jenkins.
Yes, once they moved off the coach, they try to implement a system that took the ball out of Ja's hands. And when you're a dynamic point guard, you give him the rock.
Yeah.
And you say, go create, go do what you do. And at times we'll run sets that make sense to get, other people involved. Transpose that to Minnesota, it works a little different. I still want the ball in his hand, you know what I'm saying? But just know, like 1A is that guy named Ant-Man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you could create for the others, but just know that when we need a bucket, you're going to be secondary to whatever the coverage is on him. You know what I'm saying? So, but I do like him in Minnesota. There's a lot of places I think Ja can go and really be a difference maker. I think Houston's one of those places. You put him and the twin together, like, golly, baby. So anywhere that there's another dynamic guy, you add Ja to that mix. It makes it almost unfair.
If he can stay healthy, I mean, New Orleans would be great too. If the nigga can stay healthy, both of them. If they both can stay healthy, Ja and Zion would be fucking crazy. Like,
but here's the thing, though. Like I will say this, Q. I will put my money more on Ja staying healthy than Zion because as much as the issues off the court that we've seen with Ja, I never questioned the wanted for basketball.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Ja has that ingrained. We've seen the stories of his dad, how he got the vert and all of that type of stuff. I think Ja wants to be great. I
He
can't say the
does,
same
but
for Zion.
the outside noise seems to be too much for Ja sometimes. Like he pays attention to the outside stuff. Even with the tweet that he sent today. Like y'all talking about the Grizzlies and the final, like, bro, just enjoy your off season, bro. Like you don't have to comment and put yourself into these conversations that they're having, whether they're talking good or bad about you, just go play. So I do agree with you in the sense of FIFO. Like I do think that he really enjoys the game, but I think that he could use some sort of mentorship on what to ignore, like what to not engage with, and that would help him tremendously in his next endeavor. But with Zion, I agree with what you were about to say too. I don't think he got the love for the game.
He don't have
look like he got the love for other things.
He got paid
not the
and
game.
he's good. He's good. He got paid and he's good. I tell you like this since we're talking about KD and all these like these trades and whatnot. I think that in any scenario for a Ja or for a KD, it's always going to be people like Masai Ujiri that are going to get involved. In Toronto, I wouldn't be surprised if Ja or KD end up in places like that, just because Masai is always willing to like gamble with certain people that are distressed assets or I'm never going to play in Toronto or I'm never going to play there. I don't know if that's the case, but I think we're going to see some smoke in the next couple of days with Toronto too.
So just hold on, okay, real quick. Part of the reason why players don't like playing in Toronto specifically, it's the taxes. I don't know if y'all know about the tax situation in Canada, but it's not a good situation. You lose a lot of money by playing in Toronto. So that's part of the reason why players don't want to go there.
Yeah, and also I heard that they have to also keep going through customs.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah. Spike, you think Ja would be a good fit in a shooting range?
Yeah, he'll lay that down.
Okay.
He'll lay that down.
I think Ukraine could use some help over there too.
Anywhere in Texas,
Ukraine, Israel, Iran, all them.
God,
they all can use some help, bro. All right.